Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. If you love these Dragon Ball stories, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support motivates us to create even more epic content for you. Now, let's get started. The Tournament of Power had ended long ago, yet its shadow never truly lifted from the heavens. Among the 12 gods of destruction who ruled the multiverse, whispers had begun to spread of one warrior whose power no longer bowed before divinity. Vegito, born of the fusion between Goku and Vegeta, had climbed higher than any mortal dared climb, and at the very peak of that impossible mountain, he found something no Saiyan had ever known before. Silence. No rival remained. No challenge remained. Only the cold, hollow air of absolute solitude. It was this loneliness that finally shattered the patience of Beerus, god of destruction of Universe 7. For weeks, the cat-like deity had felt the itch of jealousy crawling beneath his violet fur, watching mortals whisper Vegito's name with the same reverence once reserved for gods alone. On a quiet afternoon, beneath a sky burning orange with the dying sun, Beerus finally arrived at the training grounds where Vegito stood in idle meditation. "Vegito," Beerus said, his voice carrying the weight of divine authority, "it's time we settled this, right here, right now." Vegito opened one eye lazily, unbothered by the storm brewing in the god's stance. He offered a small, almost teasing smile, the kind that always made gods want to strangle him. "Old cat," Vegito said, stretching his arms with theatrical reluctance. "Why don't you just drop it? My double ultra instinct isn't exactly stable right now." "I might accidentally hurt you, and then where would the universe be without its precious destroyer?" The words struck Beerus like a physical blow. His pupils narrowed to slits, his tail lashing violently behind him as golden sparks of barely restrained fury crackled across his fur. "Who exactly do you think you're looking down on?" Beerus snarled, his voice trembling with rage. He turned sharply toward his ever-present attendant. "Whis! Lock your staff onto Earth. I'll blow it to pieces if this fool doesn't take me seriously." Vegito exhaled a long, weary sigh, the sigh of a man forced to babysit an overgrown house cat with a god complex. Without another word, he raised a hand and gestured for Beerus to come at him, resigned to indulging the god's ego, if only to avoid the destruction of an entire planet. What followed was less a battle and more a humiliating chase. Beerus threw himself into the fight with everything he had, his fists a blur of divine speed, his Hawkeye-charged strikes tearing craters into the earth beneath them. Yet every single attack met nothing but empty air. Vegito swayed, ducked, and leaned away from each strike with an almost bored grace, never once raising a hand to retaliate. 5 full minutes passed. Beerus, drenched in sweat, chest heaving, had not so much as grazed a single hair on Vegito's head. "Are you seriously just a dodge spammer?" Beerus finally roared, staggering backward, humiliation burning hotter than his rage. "Can't you do anything besides run away like a coward?" That was the final straw. Something inside the god of destruction snapped entirely. His eyes blazed with an almost feral desperation as he pointed a trembling finger at Vegito. "Show me your double ultra instinct," Beerus demanded, his voice dropping into something far more dangerous, far more absolute. "Let's see exactly how strong this so-called monster form really is. Show it to me, or I swear on my throne I will Hakai this entire planet into dust." For a long moment, Vegito simply stared at him, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he let out another sigh, the sigh of a man who had run out of patience for games. "Fine," Vegito said quietly. "I'll get a little serious." The air around him shattered. Silver light erupted violently outward, twisting and coiling like living flame, and in an instant, double ultra instinct consumed his entire being. The ground beneath his feet cracked into spider-webbed fissures from the sheer pressure of his presence alone. Beerus's eyes lit up with something between terror and unbridled excitement. "Now this is what I wanted to see," he whispered, raising both hands above his head. Between his palms, a sphere of destructive violet energy began to form, growing larger, denser, more violent, with every passing second a Hakai ball capable of erasing half the universe from existence. If this hits, Beerus bellowed, his voice echoing across the heavens. Reality itself will need to reboot. Before a true god, even Ultra Instinct is nothing but garbage. Today, mortal, you die. With a guttural roar, he hurled the attack forward, the sky itself splitting in its wake. Vegito only yawned. His index finger began to glow with faint traces of Ultra Instinct energy, calm and controlled, as if preparing to casually swat away an annoying insect. In his calculations, this attack would be cancelled effortlessly, a mere formality before he could return to his meditation. He had gravely underestimated Beerus's desperation. The two energies collided in a cataclysmic explosion that lit up the sky like a second sun. Light and shock waves tore across the horizon, flattening mountains for miles in every direction. When the blinding flash finally faded, Beerus was gone. Not wounded, not retreating, simply erased, vaporized instantly, without so much as a scream. In the sacred world of the Kais, Supreme Kai staggered, clutching at his chest as an unbearable weakness overtook his body. "Ancestor," he whispered, his voice trembling, his form already beginning to fade into shimmering dust. "I think I'm logging off." The divine bond that tethered every Supreme Kai to their corresponding destroyer triggered instantly and mercilessly. When the destroyer dies, the Kai is deleted. In an instant, Supreme Kai's existence was wiped from the fabric of the universe, leaving behind only silence. Back on the battlefield, the smoke slowly began to clear. Vegito, still riding the arrogant high of victory, prepared to mock Beerus for supposedly fleeing the fight like a frightened kitten. But as he scanned the wreckage, his cocky grin faltered. Standing motionlessly amid the ruins was Whis, his expression unreadable. "Where'd your cat run off to?" Vegito called out, forcing a laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Off to lap up some milk somewhere?" Whis' reply came cold and flat, stripped of his usual gentle humor. "Stop looking for him. You already killed him." Vegito froze. He assumed it was some kind of twisted joke. "Don't mess with me," he said, forcing another chuckle. "You wouldn't be standing there so calm if that were actually true." Whis said nothing. He simply raised a hand and pointed toward a smoldering patch of scorched earth. Vegito followed the gesture, and his blood ran cold. There, lying pathetically among the ashes, was nothing more than a single charred paw. "Whis!" Vegito's voice cracked with sudden panic, all his arrogance evaporating in an instant. "Use your temporal do-over. Turn back time. Fix this, now." "It's too late," Whis said quietly, his tone heavy, with something almost like sorrow. Without another word, he vanished, leaving Vegito alone with the horrifying reality of what he had done. The air around him shifted violently. A monstrous, suffocating pressure descended from above, and Vegito looked up to see 11 gods of destruction materializing around him in a tightening circle, their eyes burning with murderous intent. Topo and Champa looked ready to devour him whole. "Beerus was weak," Topo spat, his voice thick with fury. "But you killed him! You won't escape this! Not today! Not ever!" Champa let out a guttural roar of agreement, his own aura swelling with destructive power. Before Vegito could utter a single word in his defense, all 11 gods raised their hands in perfect unison. A hyper-concentrated blast of Hakai energy slammed into him at point-blank range, an apocalyptic storm of divine erasure that swallowed him whole. Trapped inside that annihilating light, the once arrogant Vegito screamed in pure, unfiltered agony, utterly defenseless against the combined might of 11 gods. Just as the darkness of unconsciousness began to claim him, his body went limp, dropping from the sky like a discarded rag doll, straight into the throne room of Grand Zeno's palace. Hidden in the shadows nearby, Whis murmured softly to himself, his voice tinged with regret. "The Grand Priest is absolutely furious right now. Good luck, kid. You're going to need it." Vegito lay sprawled across the marble floor, paralyzed, coughing up mouthfuls of blood. For one foolish, fleeting moment, he genuinely believed he might have been spared. He lifted his head weakly, expecting to see the usual bright, childlike innocence of Zeno's face. Instead, he found something far more terrifying. The being who usually resembled a giggling toddler now radiated the cold, silent judgment of a reaper. Vegito's mouth went dry. "Zen-chan," he stammered, forcing a nervous grin. "Let's talk about this. I promise, it's all just one big misunderstanding." He barely managed 2 steps forward before Zeno's silent guards teleported directly in front of him. A brutal punch crashed into his stomach with such devastating force that his eyes nearly bulged from their sockets, blood spraying from his lips as he collapsed to his knees. Too fast, he thought desperately, his mind reeling. I couldn't even see him move. This power is insane. He tried to lift his head, tried to beg Zeno for mercy, for understanding, for anything. But the Grand Priest had already run out of patience. In a blur of motion, he appeared behind Vegito and delivered a precise, merciless chop to the base of his neck. Vegito's world went black instantly as he crumpled to the floor, unconscious. The Grand Priest looked down at the fallen Saiyan, his usually serene face twisted with barely restrained fury. "I warned you," he said coldly. "Killing a god of destruction is the gravest crime imaginable. Lord Zeno will decide your fate in due time. Until then, you will simply rot here." The scene shifted into darkness. A desperate scream echoed through the void. "Let me out! Someone, please, let me out!" Vegito hung suspended in the endless black, his body wrapped tightly in thick, glowing chains that dug cruelly into his blood-soaked flesh. Choked, immobilized, utterly humiliated, the once mighty warrior who had casually toyed with a god of destruction now looked like nothing more than a broken animal, chained and forgotten. He had killed Beerus, and for that crime, he would spend the next 10 years locked away in absolute darkness, bound like a dog awaiting execution. In the beginning, hope still burned within him. Surely, he told himself, some miracle would come. Surely his plot armor, the very thing that had carried him through every impossible battle before, would save him once again. He thrashed against the chains with every ounce of strength he possessed, cursing the gods, cursing Zeno, cursing his own arrogance. He begged, pleaded, screamed for Zeno to release him. But 2 months passed, then 4, then 6. No hero came, no miracle arrived. Slowly, agonizingly, reality crushed the last fragments of his hope into dust. The strongest warrior in existence, a being who had casually erased a god, wept alone in the darkness like a broken child. He wanted nothing more than to die, to simply cease existing and escape this nightmare. But even that mercy was denied him. The chains binding his body were laced with dark, ancient magic, magic designed specifically to keep him alive, no matter how much his body and spirit begged for release. Weeks passed, without food, without water, yet his body felt nothing. No hunger, no thirst, no relief. The chains sustained him forcibly, keeping the fusion intact against his will, prolonging his suffering indefinitely. Eventually, Vegito stopped fighting entirely. He closed his eyes, let his mind go still, and retreated into the only place left untouched by the chains, the depths of his own mindscape. Within that inner world, Vegeta paced furiously, searching every corner of the mental prison for some hidden exit, some flaw in their confinement. Goku, meanwhile, sat cross-legged nearby, looking utterly unbothered, almost cheerful despite their dire circumstances. "I thought Zeno was my best buddy," Goku said, scratching his head with genuine confusion. "Didn't expect him to be this cold about the whole thing." Vegeta's blood boiled instantly. He rounded on Goku with pure venom in his eyes. "You called the Omni King your best bro?" he snarled. "Have you already forgotten? Zeno erased an entire universe just because Trunks made him upset, and you thought treating him like some casual drinking buddy was a smart idea. I'd rather rot in hell for eternity than be trapped in here with an idiot like you." Vegeta spat, his voice trembling with rage. "This entire mess is your fault, Kakarot. You're the one who forced this fusion on us in the first place." Goku only laughed, completely unfazed by Vegeta's fury. We didn't really have much choice, did we? He said easily. If we hadn't fused, Beerus definitely would have killed us both. Besides, look on the bright side once we get out of here. We can finally go find some good food. Then, almost instantly, his expression shifted. The lazy, carefree glint in his eyes hardened into something far more serious, far more focused. Honestly, though, Goku continued, I bet the real problem is that your ultra ego wasn't fully mastered yet. That's probably why we accidentally one-shotted Beerus. If we'd relied more on my ultra instinct, we probably would have held back just fine. Kakarot, Vegeta roared, his aura flaring violently even within the confines of their shared mind. This entire disaster is your fault. My ultra ego was completely maxed out. Meanwhile, you've spent years chasing after Whis and still can't even properly master your precious ultra instinct. Goku only laughed harder. My bad, Vegeta, my bad. You might actually be right about that. His tone shifted again, this time settling into something calm and determined. But since we're stuck in here anyway, with nothing but time on our hands, why don't we use it? Let's finally master both of our forms completely. His eyes turned cold, sharp, focused entirely on his eternal rival. In an instant, silver light erupted around him as he shifted into Ultra Instinct. Are you warmed up yet, Vegeta? Goku asked, a rare, predatory grin spreading across his face. You've dreamed about a fight like this for years, just the two of us. No holding back, no mercy. I love that arrogant look in your eyes right now, Vegeta. For 10 long years, within the confines of their own shared consciousness, Goku and Vegeta clashed endlessly, brutally, relentlessly. Every punch, every kick, every desperate exchange of power pushed Vegito's dormant strength further and further into the true realm of the gods, forging something far more dangerous than either Saiyan could have imagined alone. Then, without warning, a shimmering portal tore open within the darkness. Vegito, still trapped in his chains, assumed his mind had finally broken completely, conjuring hallucinations to cope with a decade of endless torment. But the next moment, we stepped calmly through the rift. All of Vegito's carefully suppressed rage erupted at once. Whis! He screamed, his voice raw and cracked from years of disuse. Is it really you? Where have you been? Why show up now, after everything? Whis' expression was heavy with genuine sorrow. I know these words won't be enough, he said softly. But seeing you like this, in this tragic state, I truly am sorry. Vegito glared at him, waiting, desperate for some explanation, some justification. But Whis simply stood there in silence, and that silence ignited Vegito's fury even further. Is that all you have to say to me? Vegito snarled. I've been framed and tortured for 10 years. Does sorry give me my freedom back? I never meant to kill Beerus. Why didn't you speak up for me? Why did you just let them destroy my life? Faced with the full weight of Vegito's rage, Whis finally began to explain, his voice heavy with regret. For 10 full years, he had begged the Grand Priest for mercy, had scoured every corner of existence searching for the Super Dragon Balls, desperate to find some way to reverse Beerus' death. But it had all been in vain. When Vegito demanded to know why he hadn't simply used his own temporal do-over to fix everything from the start, Whis' smile turned bitter and hollow. The moment Beerus died, he said quietly, my powers were sealed instantly. It happened far too quickly. There was nothing I could do to stop it. Vegito let out a hollow, bitter laugh. So what does that make me now? He asked. The next destroyer. Is that it? If you had won that fight through an honest, fair confrontation, Whis explained gently, then yes, you would have rightfully claimed the title of destroyer. But to Zeno and the Grand Priest, striking down Beerus while his guard was lowered was nothing short of treason. You had to be punished for it. And besides, if you ever removed those Potara earrings, you would simply revert back into Goku and Vegeta, losing the fused form entirely. Something inside Vegito finally, completely died. All the fire, all the hope, all the arrogance, gone. Then why come here at all? He asked numbly. Why now, after all this time? Whis' playful smile vanished entirely, replaced by an expression of absolute seriousness Vegito had never witnessed before. "I came here," he said firmly, "to set you free." Vegito blinked, stunned. "What do you mean? How is that even possible?" Whis finally revealed the truth he had been carrying for a decade. "After the new generation of gods rose to power," he explained, "they grew unbearably arrogant, untouchable. Locking you away like this was never truly about justice. It was meant to be a warning, an example for anyone who dared defy them. But recently, they destroyed something precious to me. Something I could never forgive them for. So even if it costs me my position as an angel entirely, I intend to free you and change everything that has gone wrong. And this time, there is no need for any temporal do-over." "What are you even talking about?" Vegito demanded, utterly confused. Whis turned away slowly, his gaze fixed on some distant, unseen horizon, his voice resolute. "For everything you have suffered, I offer my deepest apology. For the corruption that has consumed the gods, I offer that same apology. I know that if I break these divine rules, I will be erased from existence entirely. But I love Universe 7 more than anything else in this multiverse. It is time I finally did what is right, instead of blindly following orders that no longer deserve my loyalty." The very next instant, a surge of raw power exploded from Whis' body, shattering the chains that had held Vegito prisoner for a full decade in a single blinding flash. 10 years. 10 agonizing years of torture, and finally, Vegito was free. But as his feet touched solid ground for the first time in a decade, his legs immediately buckled beneath him. He collapsed, coughing up fresh blood, his body ravaged by years of magical starvation. Weakly, he lifted his head, searching for Whis, and found the angel still smiling gently down at him. Then, right before his eyes, Whis' body began dissolving into countless shimmering points of starlight, drifting away into nothingness. Vegito slammed his fist against the ground in helpless fury and grief. But as he did, something caught his eye. Whis had left behind his angel staff. With trembling hands, Vegito reached out and gripped the staff tightly, a fragile, tragic smile crossing his blood-streaked face. Holding on to the last remnant of the man who had sacrificed everything for him, he felt something rekindle deep within his chest, a fire he thought had been extinguished forever. He raised the staff high above his head and roared into the empty void, "Take me to Earth!" The staff blazed with brilliant light, tearing through the fabric of space itself as Vegito shot across the stars toward home. But the moment he landed, an oppressive, suffocating silence enveloped him. He reached out with his senses, desperately searching for any trace of ki, any sign of life. Nothing. Only silence and empty, endless space. Then his eyes fell upon a shattered, ruined asteroid drifting nearby. "Wait a minute," he murmured, his voice trembling with dawning horror. "That's the moon, the one Kami restored after Piccolo destroyed it all those years ago. But where is Earth?" He pushed his senses to their absolute limit, scanning every corner of the surrounding space. New Namek, gone. Every trace of the worlds he had once called home, simply erased. In that devastating instant, Vegito's eyes widened as Whis' final words echoed painfully through his mind. "They destroyed what I hold dear." Understanding crashed over him like a tidal wave. His sorrow twisted violently, transforming into something far more dangerous, far more consuming. Pure, unfiltered rage exploded outward from the very core of his being. "Those damned gods!" Vegito screamed, gripping his head as if trying to physically contain the fury threatening to tear him apart. "They locked me away for 10 years. They erased my family, my friends, everyone I ever cared about. They forced Whis to sacrifice his very existence. They stole away our only hope at reviving everyone. Why? Tell me why?" His entire body convulsed as true Saiyan fury erupted from the deepest recesses of his soul, unleashing power far beyond anything he had ever displayed before, power that dwarfed even his peak from a decade ago. "I'm going to kill every single one of them," Vegito snarled, his voice now carrying the weight of an unstoppable curse. I will slaughter every last god across this entire multiverse. From this day forward, no divine being will ever escape me alive." With that final earth-shattering roar echoing across the emptiness of space, a new legend was born. Godslayer Ultimate Vegito had officially awakened. The twilight of the gods had begun. Locked away in the endless void for 10 years by order of the Grand Priest, Vegito emerged from his imprisonment, a fundamentally different being, one bound by an unbreakable blood oath to annihilate every god across every universe. He gripped Whis' staff tightly at his side, its surface pulsing faintly with residual divine energy, as if silently urging him forward toward his terrible purpose. The scene shifted to Earth, where 11 gods of destruction had already gathered, their expressions cold and merciless. Universe 6's Champa wore a sinister grin as he fanned the flames of Topo's already burning rage. Topo, never one to hide his temper, spat out his fury without restraint. Beerus was pathetically incompetent. He growled, his voice thick with contempt. To think he allowed these disobedient Saiyans to survive for so long. They should have been erased from existence long ago. At that very moment, Gohan, Yamcha, Krillin, and Piccolo sensed the overwhelming divine energy gathering on their home planet. Without hesitation, the four warriors rushed toward the source, streaking across the sky as four brilliant trails of light, arriving to find themselves face to face with the assembled gods. Gohan, still clinging naively to hope, stepped forward first. "Where's Vegito?" he demanded, scanning the gathered deities. "What have you done with him?" The gods regarded the four mortal warriors with barely concealed disdain, as though they were nothing more than insignificant insects that had wandered too close. Krillin's entire body trembled visibly with fear, while Piccolo's forehead glistened with cold sweat despite the chill in the air. Universe 8's Liquier stepped forward, his voice dripping with condescension. "Mere mortals," he said coldly, daring to question the will of a god. That sinner Vegito murdered Universe 7's god of destruction, Beerus, and has already been sentenced to death by Grand Zeno himself. Gohan's composure shattered instantly. His eyes blazed with grief and fury as he screamed, "You killed my father? Can't even the Dragon Balls bring him back? Give me back my father, right now!" From the sidelines, Topo watched with an amused smirk, casually instructing Liquier to finish the mortal off quickly. Without a moment's hesitation, Liquier teleported directly in front of Gohan, his mouth already crackling with the beginnings of a devastating Hakai blast. Gohan never even had the chance to raise a single attack in his own defense. In an instant, he was erased into absolute nothingness, his final scream echoing with pure, unfiltered terror before fading into silence. Piccolo's heart shattered instantly, a scream of pure anguish tearing from his throat as he witnessed his student's obliteration. But before he could even begin to process his grief, a sudden, sharp pain exploded through Krillin's chest. He collapsed instantly, dead before he even understood what had happened to him. The shooter, Universe 2's Hellas, admired her work with a proud, self-satisfied smile, boasting openly about her flawless aim. Piccolo, consumed by rage and desperation, shouted at Yamcha to prepare a solar flare for one final desperate stand. But when he turned to confirm his ally's position, he found himself completely surrounded. Instead, Quitella, Sidra, and Rumshi had closed in around him from every direction. Piccolo frantically searched for backup, only to discover that Yamcha, overwhelmed by sheer terror, had already fled the scene entirely, abandoning his companion to face certain death alone. The three gods roared together in perfect, terrifying unison. 4 massive energy blasts rained down from the heavens, and Piccolo was erased amid his own final, desperate screams. With Earth's greatest defenders now gone, Topo raised both hands and began charging a massive sphere of destructive energy, signaling for every god present to combine their power into a single, unified strike. 11 simultaneous Hakai blasts slammed into the planet at once. The entire world began to vaporize, every living soul erased in an instant of merciless, absolute annihilation. Watching helplessly through the connection of Whis' staff from light years away, Vegito descended into pure madness, tears of blood streaming down his face as he witnessed the complete destruction of everything he had ever loved. He let out a guttural, anguished roar, vowing with his entire being to make every single one of these gods pay for their crimes in blood. The very next instant, Vegito activated the Angel Staff, warping instantly toward Likier's home base. Sensing the sudden intrusion, Angel Corn immediately alerted his master. But Likier, still drowning in his own arrogance, simply scoffed at the warning, dismissing the notion that anyone could possibly pose a threat to him within his own domain. Then, with a thunderous crash, Vegito made his entrance. He slammed the base of the Angel Staff into the ground with such tremendous force that the earth itself split apart beneath him. Power surged violently around his body as he ascended to his absolute maximum, and the war for revenge officially began. Before Liquier could even process what was happening, Vegito had already closed the distance between them in an instant. His fist connected brutally with Liquier's face, the impact echoing like a thunderclap. "Unforgivable," Vegito snarled, his eyes burning with cold, merciless fury. "I'll show you exactly what the true power of a god looks like." Liquier staggered back, stunned and humiliated. "Is that truly the best you can offer?" Vegito sneered, drawing his shimmering Godslayer energy blade from thin air. "Gods really are pathetically weak creatures." He charged directly through a barrage of Liquier's desperate energy blasts, weaving between each attack with flawless, almost contemptuous ease, before appearing instantly behind his target. Liquier froze in place, his entire body locking up in pure shock. "Godslayer," he managed to whisper, the single word barely escaping his lips before the world around him spun violently. His fox-like head rolled cleanly onto the scorched ground, severed in a single effortless strike. Vegito looked down at the headless corpse with cold, unforgiving contempt. "You couldn't even survive a single minute against that pathetic power of yours," he said flatly. "And you dare call yourself a god?" Without another word, he charged a concentrated Hakai blast in his palm, coldly declaring that a coward like Liquier didn't even deserve the mercy of an afterlife. With a thunderous detonation, both the body and severed head were completely erased from existence. As Vegito turned to seek out his next target, Angel Corn stepped forward to intervene, his expression grave with disapproval. "Mortals wielding an angel's staff for the purpose of revenge," Corn declared sternly, "is nothing short of blasphemy against everything the angels represent. I order you to relinquish that weapon immediately." "Is that so?" Vegito replied, a dangerous smile creeping across his face. "Then stop me yourself, if you truly believe you can." Corn's expression twisted with fury. "Don't let yourself believe for even a moment," he warned, "that one-shotting Beerus and Liquier somehow makes you invincible." He threatened Vegito with the combined authority of Grand Zeno and the Grand Priest, mocking his mastery of Ultra Instinct as nothing more than a cheap, bootleg imitation of true divine power. "Hand over Whis' staff immediately," Corn demanded coldly. "Stop dragging the angel's sacred name through the mud with your senseless rampage. Come and take it from me yourself, if you have the courage." Vegito shot back, his eyes gleaming with dark amusement. "And while you're at it, why don't you show me this so-called genuine ultra instinct you keep bragging about?" Watching the completely unhinged fury radiating from Vegito, Corn felt a cold sweat break out across his brow. He attempted to retreat, planning to report the encounter to his superiors immediately, but before he could take more than a single step, Vegito's blade had already pierced straight through his chest. Coughing up blood, Corn gasped out a weak question, demanding to know what exactly Vegito thought he was doing. Crackling with dark, violent lightning, Vegito's smile grew even more wicked than any villain's could ever hope to be. "This is precisely what I wanted," Vegito said, his voice low and menacing. "I want every single one of you so-called gods to become too terrified to ever cross me again." 10 years of pent-up rage poured out of him in a torrent of bitter accusation. The gods had stolen his family, his friends, his entire home, and Corn, despite being nothing more than a bystander, was just as guilty in his eyes for having stood by and allowed it all to happen. Vegito stated plainly that Corn wasn't even worthy of calling himself Whis' brother. Only Whis had possessed a genuine sense of justice, courageous enough to break every rule imaginable to free him from his unjust imprisonment. Corn's entire worldview shattered in that instant. "You must have ambushed him," he yelled desperately, refusing to accept the truth. Whis would never willingly break the sacred rules. Vegito's expression darkened further as he revealed the harsh reality. Whis was a true master of Ultra Instinct, he said coldly. Do you honestly believe someone of his caliber could ever be ambushed? He chose to sacrifice himself, willingly, so that I could survive and put an end to your corrupt system of gods. A deadly smirk crossed Vegito's face. And now that the fox is dead, he continued, your precious angelic powers are already fading. It's your turn to return to ash. His arrogance surged to its absolute peak. Tell me something, he continued, tilting his head mockingly. If I slaughter every single one of you gods, do you think those two high and mighty little pipsqueaks will finally come down here themselves to face me? He laughed, a dark, hollow sound. That would be absolutely wonderful. I'm sick to death of crushing weaklings like you. This is exactly the kind of real challenge I've been searching for. The hunt continues, Vegito declared coldly. Return to nothingness. With those final words, he drew his blade and slashed forward at blinding speed. Korn's body was instantly sliced into countless pieces, and before the fragments even had time to fall, Vegito unleashed a massive wave of Hakai energy, vaporizing every last remnant of the angel's existence. Turning away from the destruction, Vegito coldly commanded his staff to take him to the next god, kicking off yet another brutal chapter in his relentless hunting spree. Having already slaughtered Liquier and Korn, Vegito instant transmitted into a strange, desolate world consumed by silence and decay. He closed his eyes, extending his senses outward to detect any trace of divine ki hiding among the ruins. Hide wherever you want, he called out into the emptiness, his voice echoing across the wasteland. I'll still drag you out eventually. Just don't be a complete pushover. At least give me a decent warm-up. Suddenly, his expression shifted drastically. The entire sky above him darkened, blotted out by countless arrows crackling with concentrated Hakai energy. Before he could react, black arrows rained down and pierced his body from every direction, flooding his veins with destructive divine power. Agonizing pain exploded through his entire being. I can't fall here, he thought desperately through the haze of pain. I still need to avenge Earth. Killing one god isn't nearly enough to satisfy this debt. Just as he teetered on the very brink of death, Hellas arrived, accompanied by her angel, Sour. The two looked down at his broken, paralyzed form, with undisguised contempt, as though he were nothing more than dying vermin. Bravo, Lady Hellas, Sour said with an oily smile. I heard this so-called god-killer was supposedly quite formidable. Never imagined you would crush him this effortlessly. Hellas let out a soft, self-satisfied chuckle. I am, without question, the strongest female destroyer to have ever existed, she declared. Beauty, intellect, power, I possess it all in abundance. Simply being permitted to serve me should be considered the greatest honor imaginable. She slowly approached Vegito's paralyzed body, a cruel smile playing across her lips. Daring to defy your own destroyer, she purred. You truly have some nerve. But now, at last, you've fallen right into my hands. It has been far too long since I last indulged myself in some proper entertainment. Today, I intend to use you to satisfy my cravings. Crouching down beside him, she gripped one of the arrows still embedded deep in his shoulder. She paused deliberately, savoring his suffering, before violently ripping the arrow free from his flesh. Vegito screamed in raw agony. Hellas extended her tongue and licked the fresh blood from the arrow's tip with sickening delight, her face contorted in an expression of pure, twisted ecstasy. This taste of despair, she moaned. It's absolutely intoxicating. I do so love watching tough, arrogant fighters like you crumble and squirm beneath me. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a mocking whisper. Tell me, little trash, you're about to be erased entirely. Are you just as terrified as Liquier and Beerus were before they died? Through gritted teeth, Vegito managed to spit out 2 words. You're disgusting. Hellas burst into hysterical, mocking laughter. You believe you have the right to call Emmy disgusting? She sneered. Let this simple truth sink into that thick skull of yours. In the eyes of the gods, mortals like you don't mean a single thing. But Vegito's mind had already drifted elsewhere entirely, fixated on a single unbearable memory, an arrow of pure destruction flying directly toward Krillin. His voice, when it finally came, carried a bone-chilling coldness that silenced even Hellas's laughter. "These arrows," he said quietly, "you used them to kill my very best friend, didn't you?" Hellas blinked, genuinely confused. "I've erased countless insignificant bugs with these arrows over the centuries," she replied dismissively. "Why on earth would I remember some random, forgettable earthling? Are those supposed to be your final words?" But that single, careless sentence was enough to snap something awake deep inside Vegito's soul. A blazing, searing aura erupted violently from his body, blasting Hellas and Sour backward with the sheer force of its release. Sour's eyes widened in genuine terror. "What is happening?" he stammered. "He should have already been completely erased. How is he still standing?" "You absolute monster," Vegito growled, his voice thick with barely contained fury. "I will avenge every single person who has ever died by your hands." The arrows still embedded throughout his body shattered instantly into fine dust beneath the pressure of his raging ki. The overwhelming power of destruction itself surged through his veins, engulfing his entire form. Hellas staggered backward, genuine terror finally overtaking her arrogance. "My arrows of destruction," she whispered, horrified. They actually failed?" In the very next instant, Vegito instant transmitted directly in front of her, his fist wrapped in blazing Hakai energy. The strike connected with brutal, unforgiving force. Hellas froze completely in place. "This power," she gasped. "This speed, I can't possibly block this." A ruthless determination flashed across Sour's eyes. "Even if it violates every angelic law in existence," he declared, "I refuse to simply stand by and watch Lady Hellas die at the hands of trash like this." His entire body ignited with the brilliant blue aura of Ultra Instinct as he moved to intercept the blow, successfully blocking Vegito's devastating strike at the very last possible moment. But the very next second, Sour found himself completely frozen in disbelief. Vegito had instantly shifted into his terrifying dual Ultra Instinct form. "Don't for a single second think," Vegito said coldly, "that you're the only one who knows this particular trick, little angel." Refusing to accept defeat, Sour swung his angel staff with tremendous force directly at Vegito's head, but Vegito merely tilted his body slightly, dodging the attack with almost insulting ease. His eyes had gone completely cold. "Time for you to go join your brother Korn," he said flatly. He swung his god-slaying blade backhanded, the weapon glowing with a dark, destructive chill, moving far too fast for either Sour or Hellas to even register what had happened. Both of them were sliced cleanly in half before either could react. Vegito stood beside the two fallen corpses and unleashed a final wave of Hakai energy. After a massive blinding explosion, the remains of Hellas and Sour were reduced entirely to ash, their existence completely annihilated. He wasn't just some random bug, Vegito thought darkly, staring at the smoke slowly dissipating around him. His name was Krillin. He was my best friend. As the smoke finally cleared entirely, Vegito stood alone amid the devastation, his gaze as cold and unforgiving as frost. "Come on then," he called out into the empty silence, his voice carrying across the ruined landscape. "You so-called gods, come and find me yourselves, if you actually have the courage. Otherwise, I will personally drag every single one of you out, one by one, and wipe you all from existence." Meanwhile, in a distant corner of the cosmos, Topo crossed his arms tightly, his expression grim with mounting dread. "Just what kind of monster is this?" he muttered under his breath. Two destroyers and their angels both eliminated back to back. Beside him, Margarita trembled visibly, her voice shaking as she spoke. "It made a certain amount of sense when Korn lost, after already being weakened," she said. "But Sour fought at his absolute full angelic strength, and he was still completely crushed without effort. It seems that during his imprisonment, Vegito somehow mastered Ultra Instinct to a level equal to that of the angels themselves. She hesitated before continuing. Grand Zeno spared his life all those years ago and simply kept him locked away instead. Was that mercy, or was it something far more calculated? There's something else troubling as well. The angel staff only responds to genuine angelic ki. How is he able to wield it so freely? A chilling possibility crossed her mind. Perhaps, she whispered, when Whis left the staff behind for him, he secretly granted Vegito some additional hidden power as well. Cold sweat trickled down Topo's forehead. And Grand Zeno and the Grand Priest remain nowhere to be found? He said grimly. We need a countermeasure immediately, or the next ones to fall will undoubtedly be us. At that very same moment, within the domain of Universe 6, God of Destruction Champa and his angel Vados watched the entire massacre unfold through their crystal ball. Champa's fur was drenched with nervous sweat. That absolute idiot Beerus, Champa muttered furiously. Saiyans are naturally obsessed with combat. Everyone knows that. He was fully aware of that fact, and yet he still taught one of them the secrets of Hakai energy. That was nothing short of suicidal. Vados spoke calmly at his side, her tone measured and thoughtful. My Lord Champa, she said, in the end, he is merely the fusion of two individual Saiyans. We, meanwhile, command an entire race of them. In terms of raw foundational strength, our odds of victory are actually quite favorable. Realization dawned suddenly across Champa's face, a sinister grin spreading wide. That's absolutely right, he said. The Saiyans! How could I have possibly forgotten about them? He turned sharply, his voice ringing with newfound authority. Pass down my orders immediately! Throw every single top-tier Saiyan warrior in Universe 6 into the hyperbolic time chamber for specialized training at once. The scene shifted to reveal the King of Sadala, seated regally upon a throne constructed entirely from the bones of his fallen enemies. His eyes burned with an insatiable, ancient bloodlust. Is it finally here? He murmured, a slow smile spreading across his weathered face. An earth-shattering war, one that will finally make our Saiyan blood boil once again. God Slayer Vegito's rampage showed no signs of slowing. Having already executed two gods of destruction alongside their respective angels, he used the angel staff to teleport directly into Universe 10's sacred world of the Kais. The moment his feet touched solid ground, the elderly Supreme Kai Gawasu shuffled forward to greet him with a warm, unsuspecting smile. Vegito's eyes gleamed with barely concealed murderous intent, already scheming to use a time ring to rewind events back before Beerus's death. But he forced the rage down, plastering an artificially bright, sunny smile across his face instead. Hey there, old man, Vegito said cheerfully. Lord Beerus sent me out here to conduct a little surprise audit. There's apparently some deranged time-tampering maniac running around out there on a killing spree. If you keep the time rings stored here, villains might come hunting for them and put your life in serious danger. Why don't you let me keep them safe for you instead? Gawasu nearly fainted from the sheer terror of the suggestion, quickly fumbling to pull the precious rings free from their protective case. But just as Vegito reached out to snatch them away, a massive, powerful hand suddenly clamped down hard around his wrist. Vegito looked up sharply to find Universe 10's God of Destruction, Rumshi, had personally arrived to deliver himself right to the door. Vegito's expression twisted with barely suppressed fury. Let go of my hand, he snarled, or I'll send you straight into the next dimension myself. Rumshi didn't so much as flinch. Instead, he unleashed a devastating burst of purple Hakai energy directly into Vegito's exposed flesh. The destructive power exploded violently, and Vegito's body began disintegrating rapidly, starting from his feet upward. Rumshi's mouth curled into a cruel, victorious smirk. A mortal remains nothing more than a mortal, he declared smugly. Even if your raw battle power somehow surpasses that of a destroyer, against true Hakai energy, you're nothing but a laughably weak, insignificant scrub. But his moment of triumph lasted a mere 3 seconds. Rumshi glanced down toward the box that had held the time rings and found it completely empty. Looking back upward in shock, he found Vegito, wrapped in crackling dark lightning, floating calmly in the sky above him, radiating the aura of an unstoppable, world-ending demon god. Vegito burst into wild, mocking laughter. "Surprised, you dumb elephant?" he taunted. "The exact instant you grabbed my wrist, I triggered Ultra Instinct and swiped every single one of those rings. I just stood there afterward watching you flex around like a complete clown." A massive blade of destructive light tore violently through the sky, crashing downward with enough raw pressure to cleave the entire planet apart. Rumshi barely managed to scramble aside, narrowly dodging the devastating strike, but poor, elderly Gowasu, standing directly behind him, was sliced cleanly in half. With his life inexorably linked to his Supreme Kai counterpart, Rumshi's body immediately began fading from existence. Yet even as he disintegrated, he continued talking tough, refusing to accept defeat. "Impossible!" he gasped. "You took my full-powered Hakai blast head-on. There's simply no way you should still be alive." "My lord," Vegito replied, an amused smirk crossing his face. "Times have changed considerably. For 10 straight years, I've been bathing in the energy of pure destruction nearly every single day. That stuff is basically just a warm shower to me at this point." He paused dramatically. "Right before I supposedly died, I quietly used a time ring to roll everything back. I was simply waiting patiently for you to drop your guard completely. Enjoy your trip to oblivion, you dumb elephant." Before Rumshi could even finish his furious response, his body filled with absolute impotent resentment completely vanished into dust. With the god slain, and his hand now adorned with an entire collection of time rings, Vegito tore open a rift through space and dropped directly into the ruined Earth of an entirely different timeline, one deep within the GT era. Upon landing, he found 3 violent, clashing energies locked in furious combat directly before him. Looking closer, he recognized Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, both being thoroughly mopped across the battlefield by the monstrous Omega Shenron. "Hey, you two," Vegito called out casually, strolling into the chaos. "Mind if I tag in for a bit? This overgrown catfish looks like the perfect warm-up before dinner." Vegeta's eyes widened in absolute shock. "Kakarot, look!" he shouted. "That's Vegito!" Omega Shenron roared with sudden fury. "Who is this blonde punk trying to steal my spotlight? I don't care who you claim to be. You're nothing but experience points to me." The evil dragon lunged forward at full speed, but Vegito simply tilted his head lazily aside, dodging the max power attack without so much as ruffling a single hair on his head. A sinister smirk crossed his face as he formed a blade of pure energy in his right hand and, with a sickening, squelching sound, ruthlessly pierced straight through Omega Shenron's scaled chest. "Is there really any better warm-up exercise?" he mused casually, "than ripping the Dragon Balls out of someone's body with your bare hands?" He flexed his wrist violently and yanked, and all 7 Dragon Balls burst brutally from Omega Shenron's disintegrating form. Stripped entirely of its life-giving core, the evil dragon didn't even have time to utter final words before instantly crumbling into dust. Vegito casually flicked the blood from his hand, glancing back toward the 2 stunned Super Saiyan 4 warriors before flashing them Goku's signature goofy, carefree grin. "So," he asked brightly, "are there any decent food stalls nearby? I'm absolutely starving." At the dinner table that followed, Vegito transformed into an absolute eating machine, devouring plate after plate with reckless abandon. But in the corner, GT Vegeta watched him with narrowed, calculating eyes. "This guy doesn't have a tail," Vegeta thought suspiciously, "so he's definitely not a true Super Saiyan 4. And that overwhelming, bottomless, dark purple energy surrounding him, he killed Omega Shenron as easily as squashing an insect. This kind of overwhelming, hack-level power. I, Vegeta, absolutely must obtain it for myself." After the meal concluded, Goku pulled Vegito aside privately to question him about his mysterious origins. Vegito lowered his head solemnly, his internal acting instincts kicking into overdrive as he prepared to deliver a performance worthy of the greatest liars in existence. "Kakarot," he began, his voice heavy with manufactured sorrow. If I'm being completely honest with you, in my own world, an absolutely horrific, indescribable monster appeared out of nowhere. Even fused as I was nothing more than an insignificant ant standing before him. Gohan, Krillin, Piccolo, they were all slaughtered without mercy. Even Earth and Namek themselves were blasted into oblivion. GT Goku drew a sharp, horrified breath. Even you, someone capable of one-shotting Omega Shenron, couldn't defeat this thing? He gasped. What kind of monster are we even talking about? Hidden nearby, eavesdropping intently, Vegeta broke out into a cold, nervous sweat. We're completely screwed, he thought desperately. If even Vegito himself couldn't win against this enemy, we're looking at an absolutely nightmarish battle ahead. Sensing the atmosphere had reached the perfect moment, Vegito delivered his final, devastating bombshell. Remember this name carefully, he said gravely. His name is Monaka. In exactly 3 years' time, he will descend upon this world. A single strike from him is enough to erase absolutely everything in existence. Having successfully manipulated the Super Saiyan 4 duo into believing his fabricated threat, Vegito wasted no time exploiting his newfound leverage, convincing them to train alongside him for free within the hyperbolic time chamber. The rules here are simple. Vegito announced confidently, "You two will go full power Super Saiyan 4 and then perform the fusion dance. We'll spend an entire year going all out against each other inside that chamber." Even the notoriously proud Vegeta, eager to leech every drop of power he could from this mysterious newcomer, agreed without a single moment of hesitation. In a brilliant flash of light, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta made his dramatic, thunderous entrance. Inside the hyperbolic time chamber, the training sessions quickly devolved into an absolute bloodbath. Base form Vegito traded brutal, earth-shattering blows directly against Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta in an explosive, relentless brawl. Whenever the fusion inevitably timed out, Goku and Vegeta would immediately spring back into position, ready to perform the fusion dance all over again without a moment's rest. A full year passed within that timeless void. Under Vegito's brutal, unforgiving training regimen, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta didn't merely double his raw power, he successfully unlocked Ultra Instinct as well. As the three warriors finally stepped out of the time chamber together, Goku's face beamed with genuine gratitude. "Thanks so much, bro," he said warmly. "Once we get back home, we're absolutely going to wreck that monster once and for all." Vegito patted them both firmly on the shoulder. "Just remember what I told you," he said. "When you finally see Monaka, don't waste time talking. Just unleash your ultimate attack immediately and wipe him out completely." Right in the middle of this touching farewell, a terrifyingly familiar divine pressure suddenly descended from the heavens above. God of Destruction Beerus and his angel Whis materialized without warning, their eyes immediately scanning the three warriors who had just emerged from training. Vegito's mind raced in absolute panic. Whis had clearly explained before that when an angel is erased, they're wiped from existence across every single timeline. How were these two possibly still alive here? What kind of glitch in reality was this? He secretly readied himself to flee, gripping the angel staff tightly, prepared to bail at the very first sign of danger. But Whis, ever perceptive, immediately caught the subtle movement. In an instant, he recognized Vegito as some kind of cross-timeline anomaly who absolutely did not belong within this particular reality. Beerus, sensing something was deeply wrong, charged directly toward the three assembled Saiyans. Vegito's brain worked furiously to devise an escape. "I can't afford to kill this timeline's version of the cat right now," he thought desperately, "or these two idiots I just tricked will immediately turn against me. Time for another Oscar-worthy performance." "Guys!" Vegito shouted urgently. "That's him! That's Monaka, the one who destroyed my entire home! Quickly, use that invincible move I taught you! Stop him with absolutely everything you've got!" A blinding golden beam erupted violently into the sky. The sheer, terrifying pressure of the energy forced the charging Beerus to slam on the brakes mid-charge. As the light gradually faded, a shocking new form was revealed. Ultra Instinct Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta had made his triumphant debut. "Hey there, little kitty," Gogeta said with a confident grin. I was actually planning to save this ultimate form for a few more years before finally busting it out. But since you're clearly so eager to throw yourself into the fire, I suppose I'll indulge you for a little while. Witnessing a mere mortal casually wielding Ultra Instinct, Beerus's entire worldview shattered instantly. As the two titans prepared to clash in an epic confrontation, Vegito quietly activated his time ring, ascending into the sky and tearing open a spatial rift with his bare hands to make his escape. Whis called out frantically, "Lord Beerus! The one holding the ring is escaping!" Floating safely in midair, Vegito waved down cheerfully at the chaos below. "Thanks so much for the hospitality," he called out. "I'll leave the rest of this mess in your capable hands. Here's hoping your future turns out considerably better than mine did." The naively enthusiastic Gogeta continued waving goodbye from below, completely oblivious to the deception. "Take care, bro," he shouted. "I'll handle this whole mob myself, no problem." Vegito was randomly deposited onto an unfamiliar alien planet, his stomach growling loudly the moment he landed. Realizing the streets around him were populated entirely by bipedal wolf-like beastmen, he wasted no time heading directly toward a nearby barbecue stand, reaching greedily for a plate of freshly cooked meat. But before he could take a single bite, a massive, furry blue hand clamped firmly down onto his shoulder. Turning around, he found himself face to face with the notorious trio of danger from Universe 9. "Hey there, Outlander," one of them growled menacingly. "Dining and dashing without paying, are we? If you're truly broke, we'll simply butcher you and use your flesh as our next batch of ingredients instead." Vegito grinned wildly, completely unbothered by the threat. "I'm absolutely, completely broke," he said cheerfully. "Want to eat me instead? Sure, why not? Though you might want to wait until after I finish this meal and put on a little extra weight first. The meat will taste much firmer that way." He completely ignored their threats, continuing to devour the barbecue with reckless enthusiasm. Enraged by his blatant disrespect, the three wolf warriors powered up simultaneously and launched their combined attack. Vegito vanished in a blur, delivering a series of rapid, casual strikes that instantly beat all three of them into unconsciousness. With a final, decisive stomp directly onto Bergamo's chest, the defeated warrior stared upward in terror. "This unreasonable strength, this speed," he gasped. Are you the rumored Godslayer Vegito?" Vegito tilted his head, genuinely confused. "I didn't even pay for any premium upgrades," he mused. "How am I already this famous?" Bergamo let out a desperate, bitter laugh. "Your deadly reputation has already spread across the entire multiverse," he said. "We're operating under strict orders from Lord Sidra himself to intercept and eliminate you the moment you arrived here." With that, he struggled weakly to pull free a small purple-blue button, pressing it desperately to call for immediate backup. The scene shifted to reveal Universe 9's God of Destruction Sidra and his angel Mojito, both receiving the emergency alert simultaneously. With a graceful wave of Mojito's staff, the pair teleported instantly to the space directly above the embattled planet below. Hypocritically, Sidra squeezed out 2 theatrical tears of false sorrow. "My 3 loyal warriors," he intoned solemnly. "You sacrificed yourselves so nobly for our cause. I, Sidra, shall remember your devotion forever." Before those crocodile tears had even fully dried on his face, Sidra charged a massive, violently pulsing sphere of destructive purple energy and hurled it downward without hesitation, obliterating the entire planet in an instant. Bergamo was reduced to ash by the raw power of Hakai, his final scream lost amid the devastation. Vegito watched helplessly as his own fingers slowly began fading away, only then realizing the entire planet had been consumed by destructive energy. With a final, thunderous boom, the world was reduced to nothing more than drifting cosmic dust. Sidra and Mojito, watching safely from behind their protective energy barrier, allowed themselves a moment of smug satisfaction. But before they could even begin celebrating, a sudden, violent chill pierced directly through both their chests. Two savage blades of pure destructive energy had stabbed clean through their bodies. Vegito, the very warrior who was supposed to have been erased, along with the entire planet, emerged completely unharmed from behind them, appearing like some vengeful demon straight out of the deepest pits of hell. Having successfully taught Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta the secrets of Ultra Instinct, Vegito found himself dropped directly into the heart of Universe 9. The moment he landed, the Danger Trio had immediately attempted to ambush him, prompting Universe 9's god of destruction, Sidra, to go all out in an attempt to erase him alongside the entire planet. Just when the situation appeared utterly hopeless, two blades of pure spiritual energy had violently pierced through the void, skewering both the god of destruction and his angel simultaneously. As the pair turned around in shock, they were met with a pair of cold, tyrannical eyes, radiating an intent to drag the entire divine realm straight into oblivion. God-Slayer Vegito had arrived. "You took a full planetary Hakai blast head-on," Vegito said coldly, "and yet you're still somehow standing here? Tell me, was erasing your own universe's innocent mortals really worth it, just to try and kill me? To you so-called high and mighty gods, are mortal lives truly worth so little?" His voice hardened further. "Since neither of you deserve to hold the title of God any longer, I'll use your blood today to baptize my God-Slayer blade." Sidra panicked instantly, frantically screaming at Mojito to flee the scene while he still could. But Mojito, ever calculating, remained perfectly composed. With a subtle flick of his wrist, he used his angelic authority to instantly heal the wound piercing his chest. Smirking with cold confidence, Mojito quickly analyzed their situation for Sidra's benefit. He deduced that taking a full-powered Hakai blast head-on must have left Vegito severely weakened. Despite his outward bravado, his current display of madness, Mojito reasoned, was nothing more than a desperate bluff. This was the perfect opportunity to strike while their enemy remained vulnerable. Hearing this analysis, Sidra suddenly felt his confidence surge back. With a furious, thunderous roar, he unleashed his full-power God of Destruction form. Meanwhile, Mojito slowly closed his eyes, and when he opened them once more, the brilliant silver aura of perfected Ultra Instinct exploded outward into the surrounding void. Vegito gazed out at the shattered, starry expanse around him. Suddenly, unbidden memories of the erased Earth flooded back into his mind, and he clutched his head in agony. "Why?" he whispered, his voice trembling with grief and fury. "Why do you gods insist on treating us like nothing more than disposable trash? What did we ever do to deserve this treatment? I will make every single one of you pay for this in blood." Sidra and Mojito converged on him from opposite directions simultaneously, transforming into twin apocalyptic streaks of light as they charged forward with everything they had. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next adventure.